Okay, so to find an instrument or measurement, sometimes it's called survey, questionnaire, index, assessment. Start with your library. So in this case, you want to look for something that measures well-being, and we'll hit search. And then once you get in there, I like to go ahead and narrow it down. So we want a quantitative instrument. We need to look at the development article. So there's usually an article that announces this new instrument to the world. It's called a development article. And in that, they will talk about the reliability and the validity. So by narrowing it down this much, it should just bring up those types of instruments. Sometimes we'll include the word instrument or assessment, but there's so many words that could go in there. Think of survey, index, like I said, assessment, measurement, all those types of things could go in there. So let's go ahead and hit search. Okay, so nothing's jumping out as just a well-being scale. We've got bullying, we've got resilience, thriving, gratitude. Let's see. So let's go back to advanced. We may have to get a little bit creative with this. So maybe we want to look at employee well-being. Okay, so here's an instrument. And if you pull it up, this is where you want to take a look at what is it measuring. And as far as it, some are very specific. So let's see, employee well-being comprises 3 dimensions: life well-being, workplace well-being, and psychological well-being. Which would be really interesting if they're using all 3 of those in their new instrument. So the lit review is where they're basically explaining what they did to see what everybody else did. And then this is how they conducted their study, how they coded. Okay, so they do have it as LWB, WWB, and this looks to be their questions that they asked. So if these questions, if this seems to resonate with you, this may be a good instrument to choose. I'll send you this article. So they started with 93 items, which is a lot, but this is normal in skill development. And then they narrowed it down to, what was their final? They used 7-point Likert scale. And this is all part of the validation to make sure it worked. So employee well-being, they have an 18-item scale to develop it. And there should be a findings or a conclusion section. Okay, so here's our discussion section. The good thing about this is because it's a new instrument, and usually in the limitations, it talks about they did this at a point in time. So here you see they're looking at it at points in time, same source bias. So it gives you a chance to come in and say, you're going to use the same instrument at a different point in time with a different group of people to see if it's if the scores are reliable for your data set. And so that helps to validate this instrument. And let's see, sometimes they include more details. I'm not seeing it here. Oh, here we have the actual instrument. So they ended up with 18 total questions. That's a nice size instrument. So again, if you think these questions resonate with your group of who you want to study, then I would use it. You know, so to use it, let me explain how that works. To use it, you need to actually find the authors and email them and ask them if you can use it. You can usually find them by just Googling their name. And you don't have to have all the authors. You just need to have one that you can get a hold of. And hopefully, you know, they'll respond back to you. So it's probably this guy, I'm assuming, since he's a professor. I may be assuming too much, but I would email him and ask him if you could use this instrument. That's often a good way to get started. So yep, economics, School of Economics in Beijing. This one is a School of Economics or a mathematics professor at Michigan. Is that where this is? Let's see, Mich. Anyway, I would email him, let him know that your instrument, that you're interested in this article, this instrument that they produced and then introduced in this article, and see if you can get access to it. You will want the actual instrument itself because they've probably increased or like revised it. So you'll want the instrument itself. You'll also want the interpretation document. So you notice at the end with the questions, remember that's a 7-point Likert scale. So you'll have 1, 2, 3 subscales. And of those subscales, hopefully they're just in order. So questions 1 through 6, if you add those up, it should give you a total score for this. I think that's life well-being. If you add up questions 7 through 12, it would give you a total score for this WWB, and 13 through 18 for PWB. But sometimes they tell you if it's a reverse coding or if it's, they may have the questions out of order now. So just ask for the interpretation document, the most recent version of the instrument, and their permission. You'll need the permission when you do the IRB form so that you can show your IRB committee that you have received permission. Now, another way to look for these types of documents or instruments is to just look at articles to see what other people have used. So I'm going to show you that. Let's say we looked up employee well-being, and I don't have all those other search terms here this time. It's just simply employee well-being. And from this, we can look at, let me just hit search. From this, we can just look to see what sort of articles are out there. Let's see, this isn't working for me. Let me go back. I'll start here. We'll do employee well-being. And let's say we want to just look at a few of these to see what sort of instruments. Looks like I can't get into that one. Sometimes that happens. I'm going to add quantitative just so we don't end up with a lot of qualitative studies that we have to sift through. But let's take a look at this one. And they will usually tell us what instrument was used. In this case, employee well-being is described with 3 dimensions: happiness, health, and relationships. And from there, if we come down to, if you haven't noticed yet, most articles are set up similar to your dissertation. The introduction would be your chapter 1. So you have an introduction, then you have a literature review. Some of them actually call it a literature review. This one, I don't see that it's saying literature review, but I expect that's where we are because it's getting into more of the details like level of analysis. The method section, that would be your chapter 3. And so that's where it should tell us the instruments that were used. In this case, looks like they used well-being and performance, and they found it with all these different industries. I have not found any, and I think you said that too, in the wine industry. So here's a well-being measurement that you can see. And what you'd want to do then, if this was of interest, is figure out who the author is and then email that author to get access. So there's 2 different ways you can find an instrument, but these development articles are usually pretty good because a lot of times they actually give you the questions and then you know for sure who actually did it. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions.